like a little ray of sunshine every week. It is called Behind Blue Eyes. Stephen Roach, my friend, how are you?
Timmy, rugby league never disappoints. There's always headlines, mate, and there's always plenty to talk about. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Block. And let's start with one of the headlines. Anthony Griffin. I tell you what, there's been a lot of chit-chat about this. The Dragons have signed him. From my perspective, having got to know him, having observed him, I really like him as a guy, and I think he's a talented coach. And I think if you look at what's happened at Penrith now, you've got to give him some of the credit, don't you, Block?
Well, mate, yeah, the way that he's gone about his business too. The dark side has been defeated. I'm glad he's got another job. I mean, you know, if you talk, it depends on who you talk to, mate. But I've met him a few times too. I found him a really nice bloke and very, very knowledgeable about rugby league. And I think he's the type of bloke. You know, I would say that the St George Illawarra club over the last decade, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it has been a little bit of a boys' club. And all of a sudden now they've made the decision to bring someone outside of the bubble, of the St George Illawarra bubble, or ex-players and all that sort of stuff, and giving him the job. I saw what he did years and years ago with the Brisbane Broncos under-20s in those days. Bought a lot of players, bought a lot of players through, and you know, I reckon St George Illawarra are right for the picking, mate. They've got a lot of good young forwards coming through and a lot of players, so I reckon he'll do a good job.
I think he's one of those guys that is very quietly spoken, but if someone comes at him and he doesn't like it or attacks him, he gives it back, and that may be why a few people have got their nose out of joint.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can get judged in the media now, or people, you know, try and, you know, put a spanner in the works and all that sort of stuff. So he must have interviewed very well. He must have had all his ducks in a row. He must have done a great job in the interview, and he's beaten some pretty credible people too. So, you know, he's got the job on his merits, and good on him.
And look, he was the one that brought Nathan Cleary into first grade, wasn't he? So he can have a real influence on a couple of young Blues that are going to be very important through the next decade. And I speak to Cameron McInnes, Zach Lomax.
Yeah, mate, they got some good players down there. Young, I don't know if you've seen the back row, young Ford and all those sort of guys.
Yeah, I have, absolutely.
You know, mate, it's a great nursery down there. I think one of the first things he said was about the nursery, you know, from St George right down the coast. So, you know, he's going to keep his eye out. I reckon there'll be a few blokes on notice too that'll want to play well in the last 3 games. It's always funny when a new coach comes in before the end of the season. It gives the blokes a little bit of a jolt in the backside that they probably need, and, you know, they'll be trying to play well to impress the new coach.
What do you make of the Roosters at the moment?
I make of the Roosters what a great inclusion and how smart the coach is by bringing Sonny Bill back in. I mean, you know, that bloke's a legend. I think everyone, you know, under the age of 30 have probably looked up to him as being, you know, the bloke that they look to, and, you know, the ultra athlete and all that sort of stuff. I can imagine the buzz in the place of young fellows trying to forge a career in the NRL, and all of a sudden Sonny Bill comes back. He ran around a bit like a chook with his head cut off last week, but he had some good involvements. And, you know, they're not going to use him in, you know, in a big capacity. I just think having a superstar like that around the club is going to lift the club. And, mate, it wouldn't surprise me now with the injection of Sonny Bill, and they're starting to get a few players back that, you know, they make a good hard fist of the three-peat.
Payne Haas, he's had another outstanding game for the Broncos, out for a little while, 180 metres, 93 of those post-contact, 5 tackle breaks, 61 tackles, and zero missed. In a team that's struggling, he really is standing up for Origin, isn't he?
Yeah, isn't it amazing if the Broncos win, you know, 10 in a row or whatever, that everyone's talking about Payne Haas, but he's probably doing exactly the same thing when they've won 10 in a row as when they've lost all those games this season. He's been outstanding. Rolls his sleeves up week in and week out. I mean, I couldn't have a bigger rap on a bloke. And, you know, as we mentioned, you know, how bad the Broncos have been this season. That guy has just done exactly the same as what he did when he debuted for New South Wales.
Would you start him in the New South Wales side if he's fit, Block, play him off the bench? Where would you put him?
I'd start him, mate, 100%. Mate, he is a handful. I mean, you know, you know, you look at blokes running 180 metres and all that tackle bust and all the stuff you just mentioned, mate. He does it week in and week out. Imagine he's been doing it with that Broncos side, that young pack that they've got. Imagine him, surround himself with all those guys who can play for New South Wales. So, mate, he'll be even better.
Look, it makes us all feel young when we see the Morris twins. They've got that little tinge of grey like you and I do. Just extraordinary. Look, getting back to the Roosters for a tick, becoming the 41st ever NRL player. I'm talking to Josh Morris here, to reach 300 games and show no signs of slowing down.
Mate, they're unbelievable. I mean, you know, they're a credit to, you know, not only the game but themselves, just to have that mental aptitude to want to play every week. But mate, they're super fit. You know, have you ever? I don't know, Tim. Have you ever stood next to them? Mate, they're big men.
Yeah,
they're huge men. And you know, look, it's a credit to them to keep going. Obviously now they sort of cater their training around what they do, but longevity and the ability to score tries and break tackles and all that sort of stuff, mate, they're a credit to the game, not just themselves.
Yeah, well, their dad, Stevie Slippery, was quite diminutive, but the boys tower over him. But they've got they've got his speed packaged up with size. And I tell you what, if Freddie, I'm telling you what, they'd be on his radar, wouldn't they? He'd have to be.
Yeah, I mean, mate, I'd be very surprised if Freddie doesn't talk to him. You know, especially now that we're going to see. Well, I don't think they've quite worked out the size of the squad at the end of the year. I think it's got 25 plus or whatever it is. Mate, you'd be silly as the coach with the experience those guys have got around a lot of new blokes in that top 25. There'd be a lot of blokes that haven't played Origin before that'll come into that squad. Just having those guys around would be so beneficial. Mate, Freddie's smart enough, mate. He knows, to bring those sort of guys in.
Brian To'o, he's an extraordinary talent with Penrith. We've spoken about a lot of their young players. His representation of Samoa will mean he's not eligible for Origin for a couple of years, but he's been in the pathway system. Now, there's no reason why down the track he doesn't play for the Blues.
Well, it shows what Penrith think about him too, Timmy, when, he'd been out for a while and, the Penrith side have won, 11 or 12 in a row, whatever it is, we can't understate it, but I think it's 12, that he was out injured, and the first time that he was available for selection, they brought him straight back into the side. So, mate, that tells you what sort of player he is and what sort of bloke he is around the group. It's probably the same sort of scenario now when you sit back and you look at all the players available for New South Wales and all these young guys coming through. I mean, it's been a problem for New South Wales for a long, long time with so many players to pick from. So, mate, down the track, I don't think he'd make the team now, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if he made the squad. So, and depending on how far Penrith go, mate, they make the grand final, and you'd look at a lot of those blokes playing in that game.
When I get ready for my week in, week out, I try to get the Fox rundown of the roster and find out which games my good mate Stephen is doing. And Cameron McInnes, I saw your one-liner. I love it when he does his interview and takes his mouth guard out and he hasn't got the front Barry beef. He's an extraordinary talent. We talk about him every week, but he just keeps getting better.
Oh, mate. Yeah, and Timmy, he just keeps giving, mate. I would, and I don't know this for a fact, but I reckon if you talk to every bloke in that St George Illawarra side, he'd be the bloke. If you ask them, who do you love running out with, and what, who's the bloke that inspires you? Mate, you always got one or two blokes in any footy side that you love running out with. I reckon he'd be that type of bloke. If I could describe him in that way, I reckon I'd be pretty right without really knowing. But he's an inspiration not only to the St George Illawarra guys, but the whole league. I love watching him play.
Oh, and you look at his stats; they're just extraordinary week in, week out. Just from last week against the Cowboys, they probably should have won that game. But 200 run meters, 80 of those that were after contact, 56 tackles. He's a machine. If he does make the Blues side, where would you like to see him?
Well, I suppose one of the big things for him is he can play in any number of positions. St George Illawarra playing at lock, he can play hooker. At a pinch you can put him in the back row. Mate, you put that bloke anywhere. He's just winds it up. I mean, it depends on depends on the footy side you've got that day. If he was in the 17 and you needed a little bit of a rev up, or he had a little bit of a flat spot in the game, mate, he'd be the perfect bloke to send on. But as I said before, mate, we've got that many to pick from. It must be a bit of a headache now for the boys to sit down with Bedsy and Greg Alexander and all those sort of guys with Freddie to think about a team that you got to pick and the reasons why you're going to pick someone. And then at the end of the day, when you're sitting around selecting a footy side, is all come up with the with the agreements that this guy should be in the footy side.
Alex Johnston, when you're talking about Smiles block, they're happy at South Sydney. They've found a way under the cap to keep him, and he's playing a big role with no Latrell at the moment.
I loved it. People power, fans, the fans. Yeah, I don't know, there was a young bloke, I read an article in the paper about a young bloke who didn't want him to go and started up a petition. I think 2,500 fans signed it. So, mate, that shows the love of the club. I admire South for signing him now, albeit they would have struggled to fit him in the salary cap. But he's another type of player. I hate seeing blokes go after 8 or 9 years. You know what I mean? I like, if that's the case, there should be some dispensation now. And, they play out their careers as one club players. So people power has spoken, and Johnston is still at the South Sydney, and I reckon there'd be a lot of people applauding.
Yeah, they've been in some good form. Obviously, they didn't win last week, but that's only one loss in about a month and a half.
Yeah.
Tigers, Rabbitohs, this game tonight. Luke Brooks looked to be much better against Manly, and it's being reported that Madge has told him he will be the Tigers halfback until the end of the season. Well, there's not much of it left. They're mathematically they can make the finals, but wouldn't it be good to see that kind of performance week in, week out from him?
I think, yeah. Oh, mate, look, Brooksy's been there and abouts for the Tigers for a long time. It's only a couple of years ago he won the halfback of the year in the Daily M. So, mate, he's got the ability. I think, he just sometimes lacks a little bit of confidence. Maybe Madge has said to him, look, Benji's moving on. He played last week with him in the halves, but Benji's moving on. This is your team, son. I need to see you show me that you can take control. And I thought he played well last week. Look, the Tigers last week against Manly, a great rerun in the last 10 minutes. They played pretty good to run them down. But looking at all the stats and that, the Tigers only had 39% of the ball in that first half. Only missed 16 tackles. Now, that's exactly what Michael Maguire has been talking about. He wants to get that defence-orientated team, because I reckon he looks at all the other sides that have won all the comps over the last 50 years and gone, mate, they're all defensive-orientated. It's no good winning 38-26. I want to see the Tigers get in the grind, and I think that's what he's after.
Yeah, Adam Dewey up against his old side. Cody Walker in good form. It'll be interesting to see how that game goes. Now, Panthers, Eels, the battle of the West. Cleary versus Moses.
Yeah, mate. Well, we're wondering when the Penrith side's going to fall over. I mean, it's only 6 weeks ago when the Parramatta side went on a run, and everyone was going, geez, now how hard are they going to be to beat? But Penrith, they just keep rolling on, don't they? Just keep finding a way how to win and rattling up some scores. And I just hope they haven't peaked too early. When you win 11 or 12 in a row, what have they done? And you look a little bit forward and you say, look, there's 3 more games to go and then the semi-finals. Maybe they've got to have a little hiccup along the way. I like what Brett Arthur said about his side too, the Parramatta side. Mate, they played great early on in the season, but they have nowhere near played as good as they can. The game against Penrith, the Battle of the West, as you mentioned, that might be the game they get themselves right back in the form and start to get a bit of that belief back. Yeah,
they have no Dylan Brown. He's been good for them. Will Jai Field fill the gap?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen this guy a number of occasions, come in and fill in. So, look, he'll fill the gap, but he's not as good as Brown. So, they'll have to find other ways and, to win games. And Blake Ferguson finally got over the stripe. Did you see that? I thought the referee was putting his whistle in his mouth to call it back. I was thinking, oh, no, because he celebrates pretty good when he scores, doesn't he, Fergo?
Oh, yeah, he goes off like a frog in a sock. And James Tamo, of course, he's a good leader. He's a true blue, and he's been good for Penrith. Tigers, Dragons, a number of other clubs are all showing some interest, it seems, in him.
Yeah, great toiler, no doubt about it. He just goes out and does his job week in and week out. I don't know whether he's the right fit for the Tigers. The Tigers fell into that trap too with Packer and Madalino and all those sort of guys that were at the little bit of the back end of their career. So I don't know. I might, if I was the Tigers, I might be going for someone a little bit younger that's got a few more years left. But he's been around, played for Australia, played a lot of Origins, and but I just don't know whether they're thinking that way. That maybe we go for someone a little bit younger.
Dragons, Raiders, they always tend to put up a good game of footy. This is an interesting contest, this one. Guys like Ewan Aiken starting to find some form, but he's leaving the Dragons. What do you make of this one? Nick Kotrick, of course, played Origin at the start of last year.
Yeah, they're my dark horses for the comp. I don't think many people have really mentioned the Canberra Raiders. I just look at their depth of their forward pack, and I reckon, come the big end of season games, they're going to start to aim up. They should make account of St George this weekend. The Saints over the last couple of weeks have led for 70 minutes and then all of a sudden got run down the last 10. So I think the Canberra Raiders have got a few more points in than the North Queensland Cowboys and all that sort of stuff. So I think they should handle the Saints pretty well.
Another game that's caught the eye, Stephen, of course, is the Roosters Knights. Tedesco in incredible form. You almost run out of words, superlatives for this bloke.
Yeah, he's a freak. Ponga, I don't think Ponga's playing. I think they're resting him.
Yeah, Tedesco's playing. Tedesco's playing, but no Kalen Ponga. That's correct.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a funny one resting him up. I suppose that Newcastle have looked at the draw and thought we can't finish any higher than whatever it is. I don't know whether they can still make the top four now. I think it's almost impossible, but they'll make the 8. I'm really surprised 3 weeks out before the semi-final that they're resting Ponga, but mate, that might be on medical advice too. He's copped a few whacks.
I
you see that
think it is.
Week?
Yeah, and I think it is. And that is a thing. He's being targeted, and I think that we, as a game, they really need to look and really concentrate on some of those players being attacked, either having kicked the ball or up in the air grabbing it, because they're very military-like in policing that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do like about Timmy. He's a tough bugger. I mean, generally when you see all these, real flashy players and all that sort of stuff, there's a little bit of an Achilles heel there, but not him. He's been whacked plenty of times, and obviously in the game plan every week that people want to put up the bomb and put him under pressure and try and gang tackle him and all that sort of stuff. But mate, he's tough. He puts his body on the line too. So Ponga, I reckon it'd be reluctant from him, from his own person, to say, I don't really want to rest, but I reckon the medical staff might have stepped in and give him a rest this week.
Well, they poked the bear, didn't they? Because he scored 3 tries, and he will no doubt be a thorn for New South Wales come the series, because he's an extraordinary talent. Now Mitchell Pearce comes up against his old club.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I remember back to last year when he scored a try under the post and kissed the Newcastle Knights badge in front of all the Roosters people. So, he wasn't happy the way that he was let go by the Roosters. That's water under the bridge now, but he's a Newcastle man, and hopefully, I think he's been carrying a little bit of a couple of niggles over the last few weeks, but at least he puts himself out there every week and tries to be that leader. So, yeah, interesting game. The Roosters starting to come good now, Timmy, and especially with Sonny Bill there, that would have lifted the spirits in the whole joint.
Yeah, Trent Robinson is a genius, isn't he? And just resting Kyle Flanagan in the manner in which he has, he's come back revived, energised, and he's looking good.
Yeah, and he would have explained to him the reasoning why too. A young bloke coming in and taking the reins after Cooper Cronk, it wouldn't be easy, mate. A lot of expectation on you. He was leading point scorer for a while there, and had a little bit of a rest and come back, and he would have explained it to him properly, I'm sure.
And Luke Keary, just finally, another hugely talented player, had some injury woes, and he's back, of course, now. And it'll be interesting to see how he leads this team into the final series, because he really does look in the shape and in the line for a Blues jersey.
No, I just hope I get to see him play for the Blues every time. The last couple of years when we've been on the verge of picking him, he's been injured or whatever. But what a great player! I love the way he reads numbers and the short side and all that sort of stuff. He's a little general, and hopefully we can finally see him play for New South Wales at the end of the year if he stays fit.
Love this time of year, Stephen. The weather's getting warmer. Spring is in the air, and we have successfully gone behind Blue Eyes.
Good on you, Timmy.